Very good morning to all of you for the second day, the next day of the Bay of Bengal Economic Dialogue. You had a pleasant sleep yesterday. We had a good dinner and good sleep. And morning is very cold today. And it's a chilling cold. So thank you very much, despite that you're coming here, assembling on time. We have 3 sessions to go today, and going towards the end, we will have a declaration, Delhi declaration. If you recall yesterday that my colleague Priyadarshi could not make it, so we will be remembering him, throughout the day in different way. The first session today, the section 4. It is on climate change, sustainable development, and blue economy towards a resilient Bay of Bengal. This session is going to be chaired by Commodore Sujit Samadar sir. He is our visiting fellow at RIS, and you can refer to his resume in the booklet that we have shared. May I request please come on the dais? And then the special remarks will be given by Dr. Bhatt, G.R. Bhatt. Is a member of the Central Empowered Committee, which is constituted by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, distinguished fellow of the Vivekananda International Foundation, VIF, and he was also associated with the RIS last month. So welcome to the Bay of Bengal Dialogue, Professor Bhatt. Please take your seat. We have 4 panelists here. Dr. Shelley Kedia, Senior Fellow and Director, the Energy and Resources Institute. May I request you to come on the dais? Also, Dr. Om Katal. Dr. Katal, please. Dr. Katal is a lecturer in the College of Natural Resources, Royal University of Bhutan in Thimphu. And then Mr. Rajdeep Mukherjee, who is a policy analyst, Bay of Bengal Intergovernmental Organization, Chennai. And also he is looking after, with the team, BIMSTEC India Marine Research Network from the Chennai. And we have last but not the least, our very favorite, Professor S.K. Mahanti, Distinguished Fellow of RIS. Professor Mahanti, sir, please come on. So with that, we hand over to the chair. Just a housekeeping announcement that chair statement, we have already given how to conduct the session. We are running almost on time. We try to end by 11:30, and then if time permits, we'll have a Q&A. So again, warm welcome to session 4, and we are going to listen to the conversation, a very important session on climate change, sustainable development, and the blue economy. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second day of this very important meeting that we seem to be organizing here. Lots of interesting thoughts have come up in the last day, and I'm looking forward to more interesting thoughts coming up today. So as I say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I just thought I'd show this to you to give you an ocean's perspective of how Earth looks like actually from space. So it's my real privilege and honor to welcome you to this session on climate change, sustainability, and the blue economy, themes that sit at the very heart of our collective future. This may seem to be a bunch of unconnected issues, but intrinsically they are all linked. And to discuss such a wide subject in one session, I'm indeed privileged and honored to have such an eminent group of people in my panel. I'm indeed humbled and honored to have them with me. And it's quite a tough task to be able to moderate this session when there's so much of knowledge resident on this very panel. As we know, as I said, the climate change, sustainability, and blue economy is closely interconnected. Climate change impacts oceans in many ways. Oceans impact the blue economy industries in different ways, and which all require sustainable practices. Unlike land, which has been divided into nations, the oceans and the atmosphere still remain one holistic entity. And you see that there's also a great connection. What happens in the Pacific Ocean impacts our weather in Asia. What happens in the Arctic Oceans drives the fish stocks across the world. Then you also have 70% of the Earth's surface, which holds 97% of water. So we are actually a planet which has got more water on its surface than land. And much of that, by volume, if you look at it, it's 99%. So oceans are very important. And usually I always say that oceans give you your oxygen. 50% of your oxygen or thereabout comes from oceans. So we must revere it and make sure that it remains healthy. It also provides a lot of employment. Almost 3 billion people live from the oceans and livelihood for the fishing community, about 4 million. Yet this vast natural system is now facing unprecedented stress. I think this is coming up every day that we see. Overexploitation of marine resources, marine pollution, unsustainable fishing, unplanned coastal development, irresponsible tourism, and expanding maritime infrastructure are creating what I have called as ocean slums. Compounding these pressures is climate change, manifesting through ocean warming, acidification, oxygen loss, ecosystem degradation. We have actually seen the bleaching of coral reefs and the disappearance of seagrass, which are critical for our own survival. This year again, we reached a new peak in our ocean temperatures, and the Bay of Bengal is not outside that. It is one of the world's largest and most productive large marine ecosystems. We must never forget that. The region hosts the world's largest mangrove forest, extensive coral reefs and seagrass beds, major river deltas, which have an impact on the salinity and the pH value of our oceans. It has critical habitats for endangered marine species. The Oliver Ridley turtle is well known to all of us, under perpetual threat of extinction. It also functions as a huge blue carbon sink, playing a vital role in climate mitigation. At the same time, the Bay of Bengal supports nearly 8% of global fish production. And I think this is something that we have to be cognizant of. Many of our people in this region, the coastal regions particularly, find both salt and fish to be the main substance of their diets. However, the Bay of Bengal is also climate vulnerable. We have seen Cyclone Mocha and Cyclone Amphan, which took away several $1 billion worth of property and claimed hundreds of lives. Against this backdrop, the blue economy offers opportunity and responsibility. Sustainable fisheries, all the activities of the blue economy, whether it's fisheries, your exploitation of seaweeds and seagrass, renewable ocean energy, extraction of hydrocarbons, many other activities that go on, apart from port, shipping, and waterways, which is integral to the blue ocean economy, are all closely interlinked to the discussion that we'll follow today. The other point is that whilst we are seeing global warming across the place, remember it's an average number, 1.5 degrees. That 1.5 degrees means there are other places in this earth where the temperature is at least 3 or 4 degrees, because there are some places in the earth which is 0.1 or has remained the same. And this all impacts what will happen in our own region. The other challenge when we talk about this linkages between climate change, sustainability, and the blue economy is that while we have a whole lot of frameworks, UNCLOS is there, we have the IMO, the International Seabed Authority, and many other of these organizations, but we are not able to get together a consensus on how do we treat our oceans. We had the ABNJ passed a couple of months ago, less than a year ago, and now we are back again to a situation where still the IMO has to still negotiate emissions and controls of shipping traffic. We still have to negotiate the seabed, minerals, many of these issues. And all of them will actually impact how regions between themselves collaborate, cooperate, and integrate their entire activities in some holistic manner. Crucial to this is marine spatial planning. And there is not enough expertise in marine spatial planning in this region, and this is something which has become vital to us for the very reasons that I have mentioned to you. It is also closely linked to SDG 14, which all of you are familiar with. So in this backdrop, so today's session is to focus on the Bay of Bengal countries and see how we can work together through climate smart technologies, financing mechanisms, nature-based solutions, and institutional collaboration. There's no harm in looking back to our own communities. They have got very interesting solutions. Maybe in the course of our discussion, we'll see how our own local communities have been able to find solutions to establish climate resilience. So in this context, we have 90 minutes to do this. I've already taken up more than 6 minutes, which is not fair, because I think my panel has more to speak than I have. So I would like to just say, and this is something for all of you, so when you frame your questions at the end of the session, you could understand that what we are trying to drive at are following 5 points. First of all, we want to explore the strategic ways to deepening cooperation and collaboration towards ensuring climate resilient and a sustainable Bay of Bengal. That's crucial to our collective future, our children's future. And I think we really need to put our energy there to see how we can collaborate in this. No one country can do it, even one region cannot do it, but we can make an attempt. Then we should also see how we can prioritize and finance climate smart technologies and the source of those finance mechanisms that would be necessary for the region to be able to mitigate the impacts of climate change and also to be able to work towards a sustainable blue economy. Similarly, consequently, our blue economic strategies must also be aligned with sustainable development. Though when you say blue economy, the word sustainability is already sort of included in the term of the blue economy, where it talks about a balanced economic growth. And it's very difficult to get that balanced economic growth. There's so many pulls and pressures from different communities, different stakeholders, to be able to reach a consensus on what is balanced economic growth together with the social and environmental impacts is a difficult task. And I think it is up to us here to try and find those way forwards that we can use. Nothing works unless there are formalized institutional arrangements. Yesterday we spoke about the G20, about the global south. I mean, there was a debate as to what is the global south, and is it an architecture, is it an organization, what is it? So even in the Bay of Bengal region, we need to think of some architecture, some solutions under the BIMSTEC Secretariat or independently or bilaterally or multilaterally that will push this program for sustainable, let's say, protection of the Bay of Bengal with its assets. Nature-based solutions are also important. And last and not least, we also need to harmonize our policies. You know, all of us will be pulling in different directions. We'll never go anywhere. In the Navy, we have a good old saying, say, boats move faster when crews pull together. So I think at the moment, we all need to pull together to a common objective of seeing how we can keep our Bay of Bengal sustainable, safe, and secure for our progeny. With this, I conclude my opening remarks, and it's my really proud privilege and honor. I'm really humbled to have Dr. J.R. Bhatt with us. He's an internationally recognized expert on various facets of environment, prominently climate change and biodiversity. He's been a lead negotiator, has represented India on different platforms. The details of his involvement are in your folder. He's also co-authored first Biodiversity Action Plan. So I think we got lots of lessons to learn from that action plan which he's got, which still forms the basis of work on biodiversity within the country. I think that's a little modest. Probably it also internationally, the work that he's done has also got that recognition. He has guided and mentored extensive research on climate change and biodiversity throughout the country. He has an unreserved commitment to India's all-round inclusive growth and development. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really my privilege and honor now to request Dr. J.R. Bhatt to kindly deliver his special remarks. Thank you very much. Just before I conclude, quick housekeeping rules. We expect all our speakers to say whatever they want to say in 12 minutes, and we are willing to listen to them outside the room for another 20 minutes. But within this room, kindly stick to your time. We don't want to set the first panel late, and then, you know, there's a cascading effect and all of that. I'd also request all my audience here to kindly keep your questions to yourselves so that when we get to the end of the Q&A sessions, you already have the questions that you want to ask. Identify yourself and address it to the panel member that you want the response from. With these words, Dr. J.R. Bhatt, sir, may I request you to deliver special remarks. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair, and will strive to keep the time as you said, and cut me off if I go beyond my time. There is a tendency to pack as much as we can in the short period that we are allotted. So, at the outset, let me begin by thanking DG RIS, Dr. Sachin Sharma, for providing this common platform and for giving me an opportunity to be on this very distinguished panel. So, and thanks to all of you for braving cold and being with us this morning. The chair set the tone. He said that topics look very different, but they are very interconnected. And you rightly said so. So let me start with climate change. There is always a sort of narrative and optics about who has caused this problem. How are we here where we are today? So for that, let me take one precious minute. The report card is out. The IPCC AR6, which just came out in 2023, it says what different regions of the world are doing in terms of climate change. How much is the contribution? So with 24% of world population, the South Asia, its emissions are just 4% between 1850 to 2019. And why am I taking this period, 1850 to 2019? Because the CO2 stacks, accumulates. So the historical cumulative emissions are the ones which are the main driving force for climate change. And that is for whole of Southern Asia with 24% of human population, it is just 4%, India included. How much is for the continent of Africa? 54 countries, just less than 7%. So, first of all, let me begin by saying that we should have the global South should have no diffidence or guilt. We are not part of the problem, but we want to be part of the solution. That is my first high-end point. My second point is, and all of you know, that global South will be hit very hard. And what is the basic thing which drives the economy of global South? It is the agriculture. And agriculture is not industrial agriculture in the global South. It is done by small farmers who till hard, toil hard, produce food for themselves, make their nation self-sufficient, and the surplus is also exported, so they grow for the whole world. It is this farming community which will be impacted. So, if somebody says that, for example, India, your methane emissions are very high. Why? Because you have the highest cattle population in the world. You are the largest exporter of rice. No, if you check the greenhouse gas inventory data of 196 countries, you will find that methane is much higher in industrial countries, in the developed countries. And as I said, whole of Southern Asia, the emissions are 4%. Of this, India's emissions will be about 2.7%. Of this 2.7%, if 2.7% are taken as 100%, the emissions of methane in India will be just 13% of this 2.7%, a very, very minuscule number. And these are survival emissions, not luxury emissions. Now, against this backdrop, the developed countries had said, yes, we will reduce our emissions, we will take them back to 1990 level. Has that happened? Plain answer in this limited time is no, big N-O. US emissions are on ascendance. Whole of EU emissions are on ascendance. The CIS countries are on ascendance. So, this is the backdrop. Under this backdrop, now coming to the Bay of Bengal. What are the assets that we have? We have mangroves. The largest congregation of mangroves in the world is Sundarbans. 60% with Bangladesh, 40% roughly with India. And these are no ordinary plants. Mangroves, they sequester, I am told, 4 times, they store 4 times more carbon than a tropical forest. And how much do they sequester? More than a patch of tropical forest? 10 times more than a tropical forest. Mangroves can do the magic of sequestration of carbon. So both sequestration and storage are much, much higher by mangroves. Chairman, you used an expression, nature-based solution. I'm not very comfortable with that. Why? You see, nature will be impacted. And take, for example, forest or trees. You can't treat a patch of forest or trees merely as a receptacle for somebody's CO2, somebody's excessive emissions. You can't be a dustbin for somebody to keep on dumping. Nature is revered, nature is respected, nature is worshipped. So there is a lot of cultural connect and civilizational connect with nature. In India we say, Mata Bhumi Putroham Prithivyaha. Earth is my mother and we are her children. That is the connect that we have. And I am sure this connect is a thread of commonality which is the binding glue of all the countries in the Bay of Bengal region. The other resource that we have is the coral reefs. India is having more than 600 species of hard and soft corals. The third resource, I am just highlighting the points without explaining much. So, the third resource are the sea grasses. All of you are familiar with the sea cows, dugong, the charismatic dugong. And the seaweeds. So we have in this part of the world more than some 14 species of sea grasses and more than 800 species of seaweeds in the Bay of Bengal region. So this is the resource. What is needed is synergies and linkages. There are existing institutions like the Global Mangrove Alliance. You have it there. Mangroves are shared by all countries in the region. Corals is also in plenty in this part of the world. So what do? We ensure synergies, linkages, and leveraging the existing institutions is one method. Global finance is on decline. Global institutions are getting dismantled one by one after the another. We all know that USA has come out of Paris Agreement, of IPCC even, of UNFCCC, and Kyoto, it had done a U-turn earlier itself. And I am told in all there are some 61 organizations and institutions at global level from where it has come out, and one single country which is responsible for about 22% of global emissions. So the world is undergoing a churn, a recalibration, perhaps, if you may call it so. And under such geopolitical conditions, what can the Bay of Bengal region do, given this is the overall geopolitical map that is unfolding before us? Let me say, nobody will throw seeds of charity. We will have to do things in a collaborative way. The Global South will have to come together, collaborate, and speak with one voice. Take actions which are taken jointly, severally, and in the right earnest. And built upon the existing institutions. And what should be our priority given this whole geopolitics that is unfolding? Our priority should be adaptation. We are largely agrarian societies. And adaptation should be our overriding priority and overwhelming concern. And we have to find resources by ourselves. We have to share our good practices among ourselves and build upon these blue economy resources, namely mangroves, corals, seagrasses, seaweeds, so on and so forth. There is no dearth of resources. We need to take right action. And let me finish by saying, when India thinks, India does not say India first, it thinks about the world. And we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, whole earth is but one family. And we should jointly think not about the gloom and doom, but about hope and optimism. That is what we should bring on table as a global community. And climate change is not a race which you can run fast and win. It is requiring global action. It's a collective action problem. We should do our best and stay within our fair share of carbon budget. With these words, I once again thank you all for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for a very lucid presentation of the issues and the way forward that can be adopted by us. I can hardly summarize the entire discussion, but I think the key takeaways that we can see is that it's, the whole region is not the main culprit as far as climate change is concerned. We are only one of the recipients of the impacts of climate change. But no matter how we look at it, ultimately climate change is universal. And we all have to put our shoulder to the task and find out what measures we can take, and some of those are very brilliantly explained by Dr. Bhatt in this short presentation. He highlighted all the resources that we already exist, the institutions that exist, the linkages that exist, and there are certain challenges clearly. These solutions have to be found within our own resources, within the institutions that we have, and noting a very important point that as we go forward from here, climate change is upon us. So climate resilient infrastructure, climate resilient blue industries, these are the ways that we'll have to probably move forward, because the 1.5 degree target is unlikely to be met in this century unless we have some fancy technologies coming in the way. As regard methane emissions, I saw a very interesting photograph of Venezuela, which had been captured from space using hyperspectral imagery. And that showed a huge, I think some measurement was done of the total amount of methane emissions from the Venezuelan refineries, which actually adds to what Dr. Bhatt's point is, that whilst emissions of methane from the agriculture sector may be X, but the industrial emissions of methane and other greenhouse gases from other industries are several orders of magnitude higher than that. So thank you once again, and Dr. Bhatt, very kind of you to stick to our time. It's now my pleasure and really honor to welcome Dr. Shaili Kedia. I think most of you are familiar with her. She's a senior fellow and director at the Energy and Resources Institute, and in some ways our neighbor at RIS. So she's worked extensively at TERI since 2009, and her core research interests include the interface of sustainable development. I think that's a very nice word to say, the interface of sustainable development with climate policy. That is the current theme of this session: budgeting, public procurement, and international organizations. She has worked with the Sustainable Development Network of the World Bank in Washington, the Center for Climate Systems Research at Columbia University, and the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York. I think we'll all agree that we couldn't have a better person than you to talk to us on the relationship between climate change and sustainable development. All yours, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to RIS for inviting me. And I would just like to carry the trail from Dr. Bhatt, and and I think this entire aspect of even looking at the interface between sustainable development and climate in the Bay of Bengal region has to be foregrounded in equity and the fact that climate change is a result of a problem due to cumulative greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that is the most important context, within which, if we are talking about this issue at an international level or aspects related to international cooperation, that's the most important issue. And of course, as a world, we are witnessing this churn with the major emitter backing out. I would just like to say that even within the existing institutions, such as the UNFCCC processes, it is not as if oceans were adequately addressed. The oceans ecosystem, including when we are talking about Bay of Bengal, which includes and which has the largest rivers delta system with such a rich, ecosystem base. It's not as if the existing institutions were addressing those anyways. There has been a huge gap when we talk about oceans, when we talk about the global commons, or when we talk about the natural, heritage, which actually has to be revered. And I completely agree with Dr. Bhatt's time, and this term has become quite fashionable, nature-based solutions. But again, nature is an entity which should not be commodified. It is an entity which has to be respected. So I just want to start, I just want to add that, yes, this is quite an aspect. And, when we are talking about the Bay of Bengal, we are talking about deltaic ecosystems, which, of course, they harbor definitely mangroves, which should be treated as, global commons, not just, because these are of unique ecosystem significance. But also, it has many other, biodiversity hotspots, and it is a home to endangered species, including the Royal Bengal tigers and the Irrawaddy dolphin, and, so it's a very significant biodiversity hotspot. And I think, one of the emphasis I would like to say that, of course, the multilateral system is under tremendous global strain at the moment. But however, like if we see India has always engaged in new forms of multilateralism. We have the International Solar Alliance, we have the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and of course the other institutions like the Global Biofuel Alliance, the Big Cat Alliance. And even I would say that, just building on the point from what Dr. Bhatt says, like looking at institutions, there is a fair amount which is already there within this region itself, that could be leveraged. CDRI could be leveraged, when we talk about scientific cooperation and shared infrastructure. CDRI can be leveraged, which is housed within India itself, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Here we should also talk about scientific infrastructure, because this region is also subject to a lot of climate extreme cyclones. So sharing of this scientific infrastructure is one area of cooperation that can be looked into, in the Bay of Bengal region. And even when we are talking about biodiversity, and even linking the Big Cat Alliance to the Sundarbans, this is another existing institutional area within the region. Already Dr. Bhatt spoke about the Global Mangrove Alliance, and of course there are other global institutions. I mean, just because one, although of course they're a major committer, they have backed out, but doesn't mean the complete multilateral system will come down crashing. So, so that also, is one aspect that we need to leverage on the existing institutions, even within the region. And the point that you mentioned, Chair, about voices of a global South. As a global South, the Bay of Bengal countries, one of the areas is they need to be a strong voice to advocate for these gaps in the multilateral systems that do not adequately address oceans. It's clearly a transboundary issue when we talk about oceans, when we talk about sustainable development within a Bay of Bengal region, but it's also a global issue. So countries in the Bay of Bengal region should come together, be a strong voice of the global South, and make a case that, of course, you have you have the BBNJ treaty, and then you have, which is of course under the UNCLOS, you have CBD, you have the UNFCCC. So, but these are actually quite fragmented, and they're not really coming together as far as the oceans are concerned. So that agenda needs to be driven by the countries in the Bay of Bengal as a strong voice of the global South, but focusing on this particular issue, which has not received, in my opinion, and which do not have adequate provisions within the existing multilateral system. So that is, that is the other aspect. And yes, I think, I would really like to stop at this, because of course we can talk about capacity issues and many areas, including agriculture, which should be like priority areas. There are priority areas where we can have cooperation, which are relevant to both SDGs and climate, because agriculture and fisheries continues to be very vulnerable sector as far as climate change is concerned. But they are also very important sectors as far as the achievement of SDGs is concerned. So, I think these are, areas that need to be prioritized. So I think I'll stop my intervention at that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Very insightful comments there, particularly on the fact that oceans are transboundary issues and much work has to be done. But within the Bay of Bengal itself, we have many possible processes by which we can find solutions. I'll come back to some other points at the end of the session, but thank you very much once again for your intervention. It's now my pleasant duty to introduce Dr. Om Katel. Got your name correct, I hope. Right. Yeah. He's a lecturer at the College of Natural Resources, Royal University of Bhutan, Thimphu, and he holds a PhD in Natural Resources Management and has advanced his expertise through postdoctoral research at Nagoya University in Japan. He takes different diverse courses. Environmental systems analysis seems to be a very interesting one to do, statistics and climate change. He has participated in prestigious international programs on sustainable development at the Youth Encounter on Sustainability in Switzerland, the intensive program on sustainability at the Asian Institute of Technology at Thailand, and the University of Tokyo in Japan. He's also done training at the International Center for Climate Change and Development in Dhaka, Bangladesh, the Alliance for Global Sustainability at the University of Tokyo, and of course the South Asian Network for Development and Environmental Economics in Kathmandu, Nepal. His work addresses critical challenges in biodiversity conservation, food systems, water resources, and ecosystem services in the vulnerable Himalayan context. So it'll be very interesting to see how the learnings from the Himalayan region can actually be found in what we call the ocean spaces. So over to you, Dr. Om Katil. You have 12 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. On the outset, thank you, Pravit sir, for finding me. But let me tell you that I have never delivered, I'm a teacher. I've never delivered my presentation in this kind of forum. This is my first time. If I don't do justice, one of my friends tell me yesterday that if you just look at it, if the bar is too high, then prepare to be one of the joker of the day. That's what he tells me. So, let me tell you, thank you, Madam Shaili, for that wonderful, excellent remark. Bay of Bengal also includes mountains, not only the oceans. Just kidding, but thank you. Very interesting remark for that. So I have this short, many slides. Let me just run down and then open it for discussions. So this is my beautiful campus. If you just look at on this slide in the screen, this is where I live. And the forest conservation started in 1970s, and environmental conservation in Bhutan is actually started with the forest conservation. So, and then today, forests, when we look at those days, many of our policymakers, they disagreed. When we were a student, when we go out, we used to see big buildings, high-rise buildings. We wanted to have same thing in Bhutan, but then many of our policymakers, they said, no, it is the king who said this, we should move forward with this philosophy. And we are fortunate to have the foresighted leadership in our country who actually chose the different path. And then today, I can't thank enough to have this wonderful ecosystem services that we get from the forest. And forest doesn't only mean the forest. It has different ecosystem services. People go to the forest. You can see these communities who are living at the downside of this forest. They go to this forest, collect mushrooms, they collect fuel, they go to the forest, pray there, they meditate there, and there are so many things. So there is a social aspect, there is a cultural aspect, there is an economic aspect, and so on and so forth. And forests also plays important role in carbon sequestration. And let me tell you that this is just to tell you that my university is a federated system university. I have colleges. My university has colleges all across the country. 10 colleges. These are under the Royal University Bhutan. And Royal University Bhutan is not just one campus. Many campuses, governing office sits in Thimphu, capital city. So, but then you might ask a question, you have a lot of forests, why climate is an issue? That's, I think there's no time, I don't like to get into the details of it, but then you see the graph, we looked at for the last 100 years, and then specifically in Bhutan, there is already increase of 1 degree Celsius temperature. And the other graph that you see, it shows that in mountainous areas, the temperature increase, rate of temperature increase in mountains is 4 times higher than any other regions in the world. And what that means is, you can see this, with different extent of increasing temperature, changing precipitation pattern, because precipitation temperature are related. So this brings a lot of issues. And then this right-hand side, you can see the picture which I have taken day before yesterday. By this time, these mountains should be covered with snow. Now you can see very little snow. And what that means is, I think, looking at this picture, we can already expect what to expect. And there are these, simulations in South Asia and in Bhutan. These numbers give us a lot of anxiety. In some regions, when the rain is not required, there will be a lot of rain. And in some regions, when rain is required, there will not be any rain. So drought in some places, flooding in others. And then many of these places, if you just look at temperature, winter and summer temperature, these are already in the increasing trend. And this is not a good news for these glaciers in this region. You can see these blue regions, blue-colored things. These are glaciers in this Himalaya. And Himalaya is important because this is the third pole, which means it has the largest mass of ice other than South Pole and the North Pole. So that's why they call this as a third pole. And these rivers and many other ecosystem services, so we depend somehow directly or indirectly on these glaciers and these crash fairs in this region. But then we should not be carried away with these glaciers. Glaciers are melting, and what would happen to our rivers? And then you can see this: the glaciers actually contribute 30% in some regions. Like if you come towards the Bhutan side, these numbers show 30 to 45% contribution to the river discharge. But if you go to the Western Himalaya, northwestern part of India, it is more than 80 to 90%. So Ganges, we see that there are more dots, which means there is more contributions from the glaciers to the Ganges. And then this climate change there are two things. One is slow onset, slowly, and then extreme events. And experts say that it is very difficult to actually predict what will happen in terms of extreme events like drought, storms, tropical cyclone, flood, heat waves. So these are extreme events. And one of the things they say is in terms of, they have coined this term called loss and damage. In terms of loss and damage, they said in many of the countries, it is actually half of the GDP, annual GDP, that they need to keep aside just to take care of the aftermath of the event. So, and then slow onset plays actually similarly, a different story. It tells us a different story. Now, heat waves, you just look at different countries in India. I think this is the 2018 data published in 2019. The highest recorded temperature was 51, and I'm sure that last year and this year the temperature has been much higher. And in, I think, Afghanistan it was 50, Bangladesh 45, and I think Pakistan it was 54 in 2018. So, and this, the highest recorded temperature, if you just look at it, these are really, really scary to look at. And if you just look at the trends of these natural hazards, 80s to 2009, the scholars, they report this, the number of, loss of life has significantly increased. Now, in Bhutan, if you just look at this one, Bhutan implements construction, strictly adhering to the different codes of, building codes, how to construct, what to put, different things. But then these things, we can get these scenes annually. Now, increasingly, I think after 2010, 2015, we are getting these scenes more frequently. And what that means is this extreme events is actually playing critical role because we don't know when this will come, and then the scale of the disaster is actually really heart-wrenching. So similarly, in Bhutan, I think last year they have roughly estimated the loss and damage, and then some scholars, they reported that 40% of the GDP was lost in 1 year. So similarly, these are some of the pictures from Bhutan. We can see that the scale of the disaster is happening. And then recently, some of my colleagues, they looked at, of course, this is nothing trivial. They looked at rainfall, temperature, landslides, and then there is a strong correlations between the rainfall and the landslides. And that is true in Bhutan. And if the forest has been cleared in, more rampantly, we can imagine what would be the situation now with this kind of scenarios. Okay, sir, 2 minutes, sir. Thank you. Now, similarly, these are the decadal temperatures, slow onsets, and then you can see this, different rivers, and these rivers actually flows down to the, Brahmaputra, and then there are more than 40 million people who are dependent directly on the river water resources. And scholars, they also look into the glacier, water, and then the different sustainable goals. And they looked at the nature solutions. Maybe I'll not talk about this right now. And you can look at these different types of livelihoods like subsistence agriculture. And in the mountains, this is pertinent, very much significant, and then we need to really think about how people are actually looking at it. And there is a strong correlation between the crop loss and then temperature increase. And now the most important is traditional knowledge. People used to endure, they used to keep seeds, they used to adapt to different situations. Now with the changing environment, this has been lost. And I think as scholars, researchers, policymakers, we need to look at this critically. How do we actually revive? Because this region is, it has mountains, seas, so many things, and then so many scholars. We have wisdom, we have philosophies, and no other regions in the world can match this region. So why not we look at different things to really solve the issues really with the collaboration and cooperations. I think there's not much time, and there are other issues like maybe I'll end up with this statement saying that nature do not understand the human boundaries. We break nature into different components, different pieces within human boundaries. So I think if we respect nature and then follow the nature's boundary, I think many of the problems will be solved in the world today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Om. I'm sorry to rush you. You had so many things to say. I wish we had more time to listen to all your ideas, but I'm not even going to summarize it because there's so many things that you spoke about. But clearly, the emphasis on hydropower, agriculture, and tourism being somewhat connected to climate change is nice, and the other statistics that you gave us were very, very illuminating. Thank you once again. It's now my pleasant duty to invite Mr. Rajdeep Mukherjee, Policy Analyst at the BIMSTEC India Marine Research Network, Chennai. He joined in 2004 as a research associate, and he's been working as a policy analyst in 2009. His responsibilities include assisting the director in program development, implementation, and evaluation, providing scientific inputs for policy, advisory duties, and theoretical contributions towards improving fisheries management in the region. He has earlier been at the Center for Rural Economy at the St. Joseph's College in Darjeeling, and he's also been with the Northeast India Consortium of Indian Industries. He has an MPhil in economics from the University of North Bengal, and with specialization in natural resources, economics, and econometrics. Over to you, Mr. Mukherjee. You have 12 minutes, so that's up to 11:07.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, all. Greetings on behalf of Dr. P. Krishnan, Director, Bay of Bengal Program. And many thanks to RIS for organizing this important dialogue, especially to Dr. Sachin Sharma and Dr. Prabir De, and for inviting us here. Actually, I'm quite excited to be here. Luckily for me, the topic I am trying to present today has been obviously touched upon, but may not be on that details. It's about the marine fisheries sector and how our dialogue is going on in the region where different countries are meeting to shape the sector. To give a big background of my organization, it's a intergovernmental organization set up under the BOB-IG agreement by India, Bangladesh, Maldives, and Sri Lanka in 2003, and it came to start operation in 2004. We basically look at different fisheries development issues as corresponding to the marine fisheries sector, including resource management, ecosystem management, and livelihood and occupational safety. Our primary focus is to work with the small-scale fishermen, and we bring together the countries in the board so that they can discuss their ideas and take joint action. Now, why the Bay of Bengal as such is important and what's the role the fisheries plays in the region? Uh, it is one of the largest region when we think in terms of main fishes production. It produces about 5% of the global production, but it is also home to about 50% of the fishermen in the world. If we take all the countries around the Bay of Bengal rim, not only the BIMSTEC countries. If we take BIMSTEC countries, it will be about 30% of global fisher population who are residing in these countries. And the stocks we have, the marine fishery stocks, are all shared between the countries. It created an integrated region where each country's action having an impact on the other countries. And it's become the perfect example of why we need a collective action in the region. Now, when you look at the climate change, as we know that the oceans are warming and it is creating a lot of bad weather days, which is affecting fishing and vice versa, and in the livelihood of the people. Apart from that, the climate change is taking the fish stocks out from the tropical water to the polar waters. So what does that mean? That going forward, we have to invest more in fisheries, more in terms of bigger fishing vessels, and burn more fuel to catch the same amount of fish that we are catching today. Also, the diversity of fish is going down. So if you go to a fish market, the diversity you are seeing today might be reduced far below going forward in maybe another 50 years or so. So fisheries resources are transboundary, and thus a national approach alone will not be sufficient. And these are the problems that we see in the region, for which we need a collaborative action. There are some development taking place in the region, but if you look at the pattern of research is happening in the region, there are very little communication between countries to countries who are actually the stakeholder in the region. We work with US, we work with European countries, Scandinavian countries, but the level of work between Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka are very limited. Let me give you an example of Hilsa fisheries, which is being shown here. Hilsa is the national fish of Bangladesh, and it's a very popular fish in part of India, especially West Bengal and part of Odisha. Now, India and Bangladesh together produce 95% of the Hilsa in the world. So who should be more concerned? These countries. But if you look at the research pattern, there are research going on with Hilsa with Australia, with Canada, with US and other places. Now, what's the problem? Why we don't have research between the countries? And by research, I don't only mean the pure academic research, but research is a means of dialogue. It's a mechanism of exchanging our ideas and thoughts, and that's what we are missing. So, the Bay of Bengal program initiated 4 activities in the region to break this gap. The first one was a BOBSAN, a Bay of Bengal Stock Assessment Network, where we bring out the scientists from the countries to look at the stocks and share the information, what they are doing. Again, to recall that all the stocks are shared. What so far we are looking at a part of the stock, not the full stock, but we are trying to make people look at the full stock. Then the regional plan of action on IU fishing. IU fishing is something, if I start discussing, it will take a half a day, so I'll not go into that, but it's a illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, which is a very serious problem in the region. Especially if you are following the newspaper, you know the issue between India and Sri Lanka on Park Bay, then Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Sri Lanka. So there are a lot of issues between these countries, and also the foreign fishing vessels, especially the Chinese fishing vessels, are often being called for participating in illegal fishing. So it's a very serious issue that undermines the management measures. And finally, we are also implementing a Bay of Bengal large marine ecosystem project. It's a transboundary project where we are bringing all the countries together to move towards an ecosystem approach to fisheries management. in terms of blue economy, this is the pillar of the blue economy. The blue economy is based on the EFM approach, which brings the countries together and where we consider the whole ecosystem as a single unit, not broken by the political boundaries that are obviously man-made. But the thing I'd like to talk to you about today is the BIMDEN, the South-South Marine Research Program, which, so these are the component of the BIMDEN, where we are promoting the research between the countries. And so what's happening that there are 6 projects are going on so far, which are making the countries to talk to each other on this optimizing the blue economy, then managing transport resources, sustaining the ecosystem, and mapping marine litters in the Sundarbans. I'll not go into the details, but let me try to finish with this slide that how India can fuel this dialogue. So India has an elaborate scientific network which helps it can share with the other countries. But so far, no mechanism is there. So with the BIMDEN program, there is a chance for, we have opened up a window to brought this forward. And as of now, some 40 people are working with Indian scientists to look into this issue across the 5 countries, including 25 institutions. So regional organizations like BOP, IGO can play a major role here when we are talking, asking countries to come together. Because when we look at the countries in isolation, they are often guided by their own stakes, and there's a kind of trust factor that when 2 countries are talking together. So regional organizations can work with the countries in bringing this together. And finally, we need a local solution for the global problem. And as soon as we can understand the blue economy, sustainable development, and climate change in our own term, we can find a solution for this problem. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee, for those very interesting graphics. I wish we had more time to listen to you, but I think the key takeaway was obviously the need for shared research and a need for a mechanism that would allow the shared research. So with this I move to the final speaker of the day, our very eminent distinguished fellow, Professor S.K. Mohanty, who I hold in high esteem and regard. He's been a distinguished fellow at the Research and Information System, a professor earlier, and he's been focusing on advancing regional trade integration and strengthening agricultural value chains. Many of his works are now actually policy documents. We have worked together at the PMEAC and at Niti Aayog on drafting the National Maritime Policy. He's been formerly a faculty member at Jawaharlal Nehru University. He also served as the chair of the IORA Academic Group and vice chair of the G20 Think Tank Trade Working Group during India's presidencies. Professor Mohanty, sir, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. We have a lot of discussion about blue economy in the morning. Globally, if you look at the developments, the structured way of looking at blue economy was first started with the US, and Nathan Associates started the first report in 1974. It was followed by Gunther Pauli, a model which is mostly linked with the management, and subsequently in 2012, Rio Summit, our summit, brought the issue and also noted the relevance of the scarcity of resources on land, and also the sensitivities by the SIDS countries moving from green to blue economy. In MDGs, there were some segments where it was highlighted about the blue economy, but in SDG 14, the full goal was discussed about blue economy, but only a part of the blue economy issues were embedded in SDG 14, but the scope of blue economy much beyond that of SDG 14. Now, there is global voice, blue voice about the blue economy. There is consensus about the blue economy, its relevance by both developed and developing countries. In future, the growth is very much linked to the blue economy. And uh, when we see what is blue economy, it is not in fisheries, not in shipping. It is in all sectors, all subsectors of any economy, particularly in littoral economy. The activities, all activities related to ocean and ocean-related activities, all inputs and output coming from ocean or going to ocean are part of a blue economy. It is definitely a subsector of a GDP, but the estimation is very difficult, and that's why only a couple of countries could do it. But while doing estimating blue economy, the both aspects of negative and positive aspects of blue economy is considered while estimating blue economy. So the mandate of blue economy is so vast. It is with the scientists in sciences, environmentalists, economists, strategists, and legal issues are very much there. So it is really a multi-sectoral kind of analysis required. So as I said, that blue economy is existing all across all the sectors, from agriculture to the industry, within industry, the manufacturing, into the water, electricity, energy, to services. I think it is existing or reflected in all sectors and subsectors. But interestingly, there is no global consensus about the definition of blue economy. So different countries, as I mentioned, that their countries focus on the definition of blue economy. Therefore, the way of estimating blue economy, the prioritization of sectors in blue economy is different in different countries. But different agencies try to define what is blue economy, from OECD, UN in 2012, OECD, in many countries, even we did in RIS in 2015, PMEC and NITI did in 2019 and 2025. So if we see that how people try to see, try to capture, really estimate the contribution of a blue economy to their GDP, I think a couple of countries, more than 50 countries have already estimated, but unfortunately, 3 countries could do it systematically every year, got a framework, US, OECD, and China. I think India is the 4th country to do it. But now the question is that blue economy, there is no stylized facts. Why, which are the factors governing blue economy is not known to us so far. If we look at the size, is the factor? No. US is 1.9, New Zealand is 2.9, Seychelles is 41%, Mauritius 10%. There is no symmetry on the basis of size. If you look at the coastal, there is no symmetry. For non-coastal regions, that is also, there is no symmetry. Therefore, it is important that each country should estimate its own blue economy and prioritize their areas for investment and other research activities. For example, I just wanted to cite the case of US, where shipping and boat building sector is pretty large, as you all know, but you don't know that sectors like eating, drinking places, hotels, lodging, they are much bigger, much larger than that of the shipping sector, and therefore it is very important that we should really estimate our own blue economy. Blue economy, if you see the estimation aspects, US has done its own classification of estimating blue economy. They've got a NICS classification. Then you started its own classification of NEC, but all other countries are left out like that, and we all are again depending on ICIC UN classification for this industrial classification. So in that, sectors are again divided into industries by ICIC revision 5 now, and then from each industry at 4 digit and national level at 5 digits, again it is subdivided to activities, but the estimation only stopped there. But activities to products is another major challenging for most of our countries. We in PMEC in India estimated the blue economy, which is around 4%. But the important aspect is that blue economy is more resilient during buoyancy and recession. During recession, Indian GDP went down. There was temporary setback for blue economy, but it immediately revived after some time. It is 4% we have estimated for India, but later on RIS developed a framework under which we estimated blue economy for 2021, and where you can see there is no symmetry between different sectors in the blue economy sector. In 2021, total contribution was $126.5 billion in India. Another important aspect is blue trade. As I said, that from sectors to product is important, and product, when you talk about it, is blue trade. Blue trade we estimated for 169 countries using 6-digit HS for all countries, and we took nearly 780 products. And we estimated that in 2002, it was less than $500 billion globally. But it went up to $2.2 trillion by 2022, and now it is reduced to $2 billion in 2023. Important aspect is that in all countries, trade grows faster than GDP, and blue economy GDP grows much faster than overall GDP, and blue economy grows faster than total GDP of any country. But blue trade grows faster than even trade. And this is the most fast growing segment which can really put any country on a high pedestal. Looking at BIMSTEC, we estimated blue economy in BIMSTEC. It also exactly replicated the same trend that of the global trade, blue trade. And that we can see that in recent years, it is really zooming and is growing fast. In BIMSTEC countries, I think India and Thailand are the two major economies, but Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka are in the moderate level, Bhutan and Nepal being landlocked countries, they have got lesser in terms of blue trade. Why blue trade is so important? I just try to show the case of India. If you look at the blue trade in goods and services, blue trade in India, generally we see that India is a trade deficit country with the rest of the world. But in goods and services, both the sectors, India has got trade surplus. And that has really contributed to reduce the overall trade deficit of the country. Blue economy is is a cross-cutting sector in many SDGs. This is the map how BIMSTEC has really worked since its inception in 1997. I think the recent ones, Dr. Mukherjee has very elaborately discussed about BIMRIN, and I don't want to say that, but in all our priority areas, you can see there is the imprints of a blue economy in the BIMSTEC. My last slide, that it is definitely that ocean is very vital and a key to the region, and its governance should be inclusive and to be made sustainable. Regional cooperation is very much required for having a common definition with the region to have strategic planning and through blue economy accounting. Capacity building is also important in different areas. In our all deliberations, we have got a huge potential in the different sectors. Technology transfer, we have developed technology in different areas. Technology transfer you can think of. We can also share best practices and implementation is very much there. We also try to see the value chains in multiple sectors within the blue economy sectors. Another important aspect is about a blue MSME, which is emerging, which is highly employment intensive, but it would generate blue-colored employment in the respective countries. So we should really develop blue trade, and for that, we also focus on the development of blue products, where we are not very different from that of developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty, for that very enlightening conversational on blue economy. You brought out a large number of issues, and I think there'll be quite a lot of discussion on that. But I think the key takeaway for me was government must be inclusive, rule-based, and sustainable, particularly in the Bay of Bengal region. And we have to put our minds together to figure out how we can achieve these goals. So we have about 14 minutes from now till the end of this session. So if there are any questions, that would be welcome. And kindly follow the standard protocol. Identify yourself, state your question in as brief as you could, and kindly address it to the panel member that you wish. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm, in fact, thank you. My question is to Professor Mohanty. So he presented a nice, in fact, backdrop of the, in fact, the blue trade. So it's really new thing, because most of the countries don't, in fact, calculate the volume of the blue trade and buy the product. And I interestingly found another study, which is from the Ministry of Statistics of India. So it's regarding the ocean accounting. So it's a framework of system of environmental economic accounting. So it's very nice initiative, but I don't see any kind of aggregate figure on the gross value addition of the oceans, especially in the Indian Ocean, and contributing to the GDP of India. So do you have any kind of figure like that? Thank you.
We'll just take a few more questions together and then address it. So first question is to Professor. Yes, sir, please.
Good morning, sir. I am Captain Yogen Sharma from the National Maritime Foundation. My question is to Rajdeep, sir. I think you said your organization, that is Bay of Bengal Plan for Sustainable Fisheries Development. Don't you think that exclusion of Myanmar, which has got such a large coastline in Bay of Bengal, can we really assume that we'll have a sustainable development without one of the major nations being a part of it? And why we have not been able to include Myanmar as a part of the BOBP?
Yes, madam.
I'm also, good morning, my name is Anuttam, I'm also from the NMF. I just had a question also for sir on the same organization. Essentially, he mentioned that India and Bangladesh face issues related to Hilsa fisheries, and despite the two countries producing 95% of the fishery stock, only they do not conduct research on these issues together. So I wanted to know why that has been the case so far. I mean, we understand the geopolitical concerns are there, and secondly, within within the riverine domain, are we looking at also including the maritime domain, or a convergence between the two? Because you are an intergovernmental organization that has other countries as members. So are we looking at that aspect wherein we are incorporating riveries? Because estuaries are where maximum trafficking happens, and other maritime issues are there. So do we see a convergence between the riverine and maritime domain? That's my question. Thank you.
Take one more. Sir, please. Dr. Dev.
Just a clarification to Professor Bhatt. I mean, he's rightly said that we are not part of the problem. We would like to be the part of the solutions. Now, given the global geopolitics, and you discussed it, you presented it very nicely. So what do you think that's the way forward, very crystal term? Is it that EU, can India or the countries in the global south make a best deal, or something, best optimum outcome? What do you expects. And another quick questions to Dr. Sally Kedia, when she talked about, the ocean transboundary issues. Can we think for a kind of a regional framework for the Bay of Bengal, at least some conversation for the 7 countries, 7 countries plus? Can a knowledge product be produced by TERI and other think tanks jointly? We have a Bangkok Vision Report 2030, which the leaders adopted in the last year, in April. The vision, which the Secretary General yesterday said, we now have a vision, we have an action plan, and this action plan need to be utilized to gain to the vision. So that's a quick questions for me. Thank you.
I'll take one more question and then we can, yes, madam.
Good morning, sir. I'm Vanita from National Maritime Foundation. So my first question is to J.R. Bhatt, sir. Sir, as you also mentioned, US have kind of withdrawn from Paris Agreement and all other climate change related treaties and all that. So now that they're in disengagement, risk the normalizing the idea that climate change is not a serious issue. And as you have been part of a lot of negotiations, and US has been a kind of a powerful voice in that. So do you think this thing will become a normalizing, and then how this will impact? And my another question is to Mohanty, sir. So blue economy and ocean economy get confused a lot, as blue economy is a model of economy and not just a part of economy. And as a scholars, when we read literature, there's a lot of confusion on it. And I see that when we talk about blue economy and trade and growing the economy from the ocean resources, the overexploitation is another problem coming out of it. So when we talk blue economy as a model and overexploitation, sir, can you comment on that? Thank you.
Okay, so we got a group of 5 questions. We'll go on to the second round after this. So let me start with Professor Mohanty. You've got a couple of questions. Kindly make it short, so we have another 6 minutes to end this session. Please, Professor Mohanty.
Professor Mipur's very interesting question that when we estimate blue economy, it is whether it is blue trade or estimation of blue GDP. It is a very detailed analysis for which we take industry codes, because industry codes are directly linked to GDP accounting of the most of the economies. And GDP accounting is done at 4-digit ISIC, International Standard Industrial Classification. So it is very detailed ones. For example, in case of India, out of 3,000 odd industrial codes, we could really identify nearly 216 codes at 5-digit to estimate blue economy, where part of it is partial and part of them are fully taken care of. For example, when you talk about fisheries or shipping, we take the full contribution to these sectors to our GDP. But in other sectors, for example, we talk about minerals. In minerals, we only take the placer minerals and the coastal minerals as a part of a blue economy. When you talk about any other industry, for example, take the case of petroleum. Petroleum, you take it from the ocean and you also take from the land. We only take that element of ocean from Bombay High, which we extract part of blue economy, not the petroleum that we extract from other parts of the country, including Assam. So that way it is very structured and minute analysis to identify the sectors where the contribution should be added to GDP. Similar is the case in case of a blue economy. It is industries are linked to trade classification, harmonize the system, And then you identify the products, whether they're fully contributing to the blue trade or partially contributing to blue trade. So it is a bit complex, but things are evolving. After we did it in 2018, UNCTAD is now started working on it. So I think things are picking up, but it is very interesting that in the near future, the blue economy and blue trade would really steer our economies. My second question is about a blue economy. When we started the whole process, you have got a blue economy, ocean economy, marine economy, coastal economy. Not one, several terminologies. And in literature, you find that they're used as a synonymous words, but not. They've got, in terms of their definition, they're completely different. For example, blue economy covers everything, including that of extended, up to extended EEZ. EEZ is concerned, those countries are having extended EEZ. The resources coming from that also included under blue economy. But in case of a marine economy, another concept, which is mostly referring to the manufacturing sector. So blue manufacturing sector is part of the marine economy. When the blue economy estimation issue came up and US took it, they've got a zip code for different areas. And a zip code has got all information about the economic activities, about the employment, the nature of employment, all those issues there. And using those zip code around the coast, they try to estimate a blue economy, and therefore that is a concept of coastal economy. So you find numerous definitions of blue economy, but definition-wise they're different. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bhatt. Can you make your intervention to a minute, please?
Thank you. So, Dr. Praveer Dey is the person who actually would know the answer also when you have asked, but I will just attempt and correct me wherever I go wrong, sir. I also recognize the distinguished presence of Dr. Sheshadri Chariji. Our respectful regards to him, sir. The narrative and optics. So, after the UN was formed, in 1945, the narrative was decades of development. So, everybody said that we will cover the development deficit, and there were resolutions. We all know decades of development failed. At the end of every decade, they said, we are failing miserably. Then came the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. They were 8 in number. They failed. You had also the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation. That also fizzled out. Then came SDGs, 17. But in between, in the narrative, there were also 20 Aichi targets, where India did exceptionally well, but at global level they did not succeed. So then came the Kunming-Montreal GBF with 23 targets, and the SDGs we are wrestling with. So basically, as you would notice, the targets have been revised upwards. The means of implementation have not been forthcoming. So while the target number is increasing, means of implementation not fulfilled, and the target itself remains in a limbo. So this is the narrative. And with this narrative, what happens? We, as Global South, we are diverting our scarce resources and manpower for problems where our contribution is very minimal. That is the the moot point that I am trying to hit. And at the UN level, these problems have been segregated into conventions, treaties. But when it comes to the doorstep of a developing country, it comes as a delegation. You have to tackle biodiversity loss, climate change, land degradation, POPs, everything. Where again, I repeat my statement, our contribution has been very little. And let me say one more point, sir, with your permission, one more minute, and that is on oceans. Humanity is almost 100 years behind than what we know about land. So this is, or space even, but we are very ignorant about our oceans. I hope I tried to say something. Now, your question was, what does one do with America entering and exiting at its own free will, with other developed countries, their emissions on ascendance? What can the Global South do? Three things. Global South has to speak with one voice, unified voice. Second is, the Global South must foreground adaptation. Adaptation is our overwhelming concern, our overriding priority. And third, we have to be Atmanirbhar or self-sufficient always. Nobody throws seeds of charity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shri.
Yes, with respect to, of course, we are having like a, when we're talking about Bay of Bengal in the context of climate change and sustainable development, definitely it's a transboundary issue, but also there is a lot of interconnectedness also, which has come out in Dr. Om Katil's presentation, because, it's everything ends in the ocean, whether it starts from the mountain. So there is a huge interconnectedness. I think there are already many regional initiatives in place, including the one which was highlighted by Mr. Mukherjee. We also have to be very mindful that there are political sensitivities even within the region, and at a high politics level, countries may not want to cooperate too much. But when we are talking about scientific cooperation, track 2 exchanges, these need to be strengthened, and especially in the areas which are more vulnerable when we are talking about climate change, agriculture, fisheries. Also, in Dr. Katil's presentation, although he didn't get much time to talk about, we're talking about slow onset events, we're talking about extreme events, we're talking about, this region being very vulnerable to cyclones, storm surges, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to continue this dialogue, track 2 exchange, but also strengthen scientific cooperation. There are some sensitivities, there are some high politics issues, may not always be sorted, but again, climate change and any solutions to climate change has to be driven by science. And therefore, we need to also strengthen scientific cooperation in this region. Thank you.
Moving forward from scientific cooperation to the questions addressed to Mr. Mukherjee, if you could kindly address them.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. So I'll be quite brief. Sir, good to see you here, and thank you. We are open to membership from Myanmar, but Myanmar is also a member of CIPDEC, which is same as BOP in the other part of the Bay of Bengal. So kind of their needs are met through the CIPDEC. It might be the reason that they are not a member of the Bay of Bengal program also. But apart from that, we are working with Myanmar through BIMSTEC, the BIMREN program. Myanmar is a part of that. So that's the advantage of the BIMREN program. And ma'am, to your question, it's an excellent question. But like organizations have their own limits. So we can look up to the SU9. SU9 is a part of our mandate. But when it comes to inland, it's a different situation altogether. So unfortunately we cannot look into that. But we work with the Department of Fisheries in let's say West Bengal and Bangladesh. So through them, we can raise some issues on the inland fisheries sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. I'm sorry we are completely out of time, and I don't want to impose any penalties on the subsequent sessions. So we'll have to leave the questions for the coffee break. I'm sure all of you would have learned a lot. At least I personally have learned a lot from this interaction with my very eminent panel. I would be very grateful if all of us could join to thank our panelists for sparing their time to come and address this gathering.
The Steeler panel discussed many things, and it's provoked my mind, actually. I always sleeping, but it has also provoked my mind to ask questions to you, knowingly or unknowingly, it's good or bad, but rightly answered to it. Everyone, just to kind of rituals, that a group photo of all of you, if you can take with, stand there for a minute. He will take the photo.
1 minute. Can you also join?
I'm an outsider,